has surged, according to new data from a leading global security think tank in Sweden. Inflation, Russia's war on Ukraine and US efforts to outpace China are cited as major factors. Deutsche Welle correspondent Thomas Sparrow joins us now from Berlin. Hi, Thomas. So what are the main takeaways from this global study?
The main takeaway undoubtedly is the fact that despite economic uncertainty, despite the fact that many countries around the world are facing rising inflation or big economic problems, military expenditure last year, 2022, actually grew to what the authors described as record highs. The US and China continue to be the countries with the highest military expenditure in the world, but the increase is also very pronounced in other parts of the world, in particular here in Europe, unsurprisingly because of the war in Ukraine. So both Russia and Ukraine registered a high increase in military spending last year, but also other countries in Europe that were indirectly affected by the war in Ukraine, like, for example, the United Kingdom or Germany. So all in all, a picture that shows that countries, according to the authors, are thinking more and more about themselves, about their own security at a time of global uncertainty in terms of security and also obviously military issues as well.
Let's zoom into Europe then, because what does the report say about the increase there, and in particular where you are in Germany?
Well, Germany obviously has played a very important but also a very controversial role in the last year since the war in Ukraine began. It's meant a very big change in German political and security issues. In fact, the German Chancellor at the time, Olaf Scholz, so immediately after the war in Ukraine began, described it as a Zeitenwende, so as a change of era in German foreign and security policy. That meant also a big investment in terms of military spending for military forces here in Germany that had been understaffed, under-equipped and had faced major problems. Now, for some, this has happened too slowly. So basically the implementation of that change of era, and much of that implementation will actually be seen in future studies on military spending. But for those who are in favor, for those who see this favorably, this change of era in Germany is certainly a step forward at a time of increasing global insecurity.
And as you say, it has been controversial in some parts. How does the public broadly feel about this issue?
Well, I think in Germany there's now a broader understanding that after many years of Germany's military facing very significant problems, that it was time for the German government to really put some money into it, to really spend big when it comes to increasing Germany's defense capabilities. Now, if we speak specifically about sending weapons to Ukraine, which, by the way, is another very controversial issue here, you can see recent polls revealing that around half of German people actually see this as being appropriate. But there's also a big number of those who see this skeptically, and this is probably related to the fact that many are concerned about how the war in Ukraine could end and whether sending more and more weapons to Ukraine could actually make the conflict even bigger instead of helping to resolve it. So there is a big debate here in Germany, which, by the way, is not only felt here in Germany, it's also a debate that we can clearly see in other parts around the world.
Deutsche Welle correspondent Thomas Sparrow, thank you. Here are the top stories.